Some people spend their entire lives surrounded by others, yet quietly feel alone. They have friends, families, successful careers. From the outside, their lives seem complete, yet deep inside, they carry the unsettling feeling that no one truly knows who they are. At first, loneliness feels like a problem to solve. We tell ourselves we simply haven't met the right people, that we should be more outgoing, more social, more likable. But what if loneliness is not always the absence of people? What if sometimes it appears because something within us has begun to change? Perhaps you've experienced it yourself. Conversations that once felt engaging now leave you strangely empty. The need to impress others slowly begins to fade. Fitting in becomes less important than understanding who you really are. From the outside, almost nothing has changed. But inside, it feels as though you're becoming someone you don't fully recognize yet. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung devoted much of his life to understanding this kind of inner transformation. He called it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are, rather than simply living according to the expectations of others. Jung never claimed that intelligent people are destined to be lonely, nor did he suggest that loneliness is a sign of wisdom. But his ideas offer a powerful way of understanding why periods of deep self-discovery can sometimes feel unexpectedly isolating. In this video, we'll explore one possible Jungian interpretation of that experience. Not why smart people are lonely, but why becoming more conscious of yourself can sometimes make you feel as though you no longer belong to the world you once knew, and why that feeling may not be the end of connection, but the beginning of a more honest relationship with yourself, and eventually, with others. There comes a moment in many people's lives that is almost impossible to explain. Nothing dramatic happens. You don't move away. You don't lose everyone you love. Your life appears exactly the same. Yet something fundamental has shifted. The conversations you once enjoyed begin to feel strangely repetitive. Ideas that once seemed obvious now raise uncomfortable questions. You start noticing contradictions that had always been there, but somehow remained invisible. Perhaps the strangest part is that almost no one else notices. To everyone around you, you're still the same person, but inwardly, a quiet transformation has already begun. Carl Jung believed that much of our social life is shaped by what he called the persona. The persona is the face we present to the world. It helps us belong. It earns acceptance. It allows us to function within families, workplaces, and society. There is nothing inherently false about the persona. In many ways, it is necessary. The problem begins only when we mistake the mask for the person wearing it. When our roles become so familiar that we forget to ask one simple question: who am I when no one expects anything from me? For Jung, questions like this mark the beginning of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming more fully yourself. Not by rejecting society, not by believing you're better than anyone else, but by discovering the parts of yourself that have remained unheard beneath years of adaptation. That discovery rarely feels exciting. More often, it feels unsettling. The values that once guided your life no longer seem as certain. The need for approval quietly loses its grip. You begin saying no where you once said yes. You stop laughing simply because everyone else is laughing. Sometimes you choose silence instead of pretending to agree. From the outside, these changes appear almost invisible. From the inside, they change everything. People may tell you that you've become distant. Others may assume you've become arrogant. But often neither is true. What they're witnessing is not a rejection of them. It's the beginning of a more honest relationship with yourself. And honesty has a curious effect. It quietly separates you from the version of yourself that existed only to keep everyone else comfortable. The first step toward becoming yourself is rarely dramatic. It begins with a realization so quiet that it is almost easy to miss. You can no longer return to being the person you believed you had to be. One of the first signs of inner transformation is not that you speak less, but that you begin listening differently. The world around you hasn't changed. The same conversations continue. People still talk about work, money, success, politics, other people's mistakes. Yet somehow, those conversations no longer satisfy you the way they once did. Not because these things have become meaningless, they remain part of life. But your attention has quietly shifted toward questions that cannot be answered with quick opinions. Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Why do certain people affect me so deeply? What part of myself have I been avoiding? These questions don't demand immediate answers. They ask for honesty. Jung believed that much of what shapes our lives exists outside conscious awareness. Beneath the personality we present to the world lies a much larger psychological reality, one filled with forgotten memories, hidden fears, unrealized potential, and unconscious patterns. As our attention turns inward, our experience of the outer world begins to change. Not because the world itself is different, but because we are seeing it through different eyes. You begin noticing how quickly people rush towards certainty, how uncomfortable silence has become, how often easy answers replace genuine curiosity. And sometimes you simply choose not to speak, not because you have nothing to say, but because speaking only to fill the silence no longer feels honest. That choice can be surprisingly lonely. You may find yourself sitting among friends, yet feeling as though you're speaking a different language, not rejected, not excluded, simply unable to connect in the way you once did. It is easy to believe that no one understands you, but perhaps something else is happening. Perhaps you are still learning how to express the person you are becoming. Every meaningful transformation creates a period where the old language no longer fits, while the new one has not yet fully emerged. That space can feel uncertain, it can feel lonely. But perhaps loneliness in moments like these is not proof that you have become disconnected from the world. Perhaps it is simply the quiet space between two identities, the one you have already outgrown and the one you are still becoming. There is a quiet fear that many people carry without ever speaking about it. The fear that if they reveal who they truly are, they will lose the people they love. So they adapt. They soften their opinions. They hide their doubts. They laugh when they don't find something funny. They agree when they long to disagree. Little by little, they become experts at protecting peace. But often, that peace comes at a hidden cost. The cost of slowly losing contact with themselves. Jung understood that the need to belong is deeply human. None of us develops alone. We all need relationships, acceptance, and community. Yet psychological growth asks a difficult question. Are you living from your own center or from the expectations of everyone around you? Authenticity is often misunderstood. Many people imagine it means saying whatever comes to mind, refusing compromise, rejecting society. But genuine authenticity is far quieter. It is simply the decision to stop pretending, to stop performing a version of yourself whose only purpose is to avoid rejection. Ironically, you may barely notice the change, while everyone else does. Friends tell you that you've changed. Family members wonder why you become so serious. Some may even believe you've become distant or arrogant. Often, neither is true. The role they learn to recognize is simply beginning to disappear. Relationships naturally form around the person we appear to be. So when that person changes, the relationship must change as well. Sometimes it grows deeper, sometimes it becomes uncomfortable, and sometimes it quietly comes to an end that can be painful. Not because every relationship is meant to last forever, but because every ending forces us to ask who we were trying to be. Growth is not only about discovering new parts of yourself. It is also about releasing identities that once made you feel safe. This is why authenticity can feel lonely. not because it drives people away, but because it transforms the foundation on which many relationships were built. For a while, you may feel as though you belong nowhere, but perhaps that feeling is not evidence that you've lost your place in the world. Perhaps it is the space where something more honest is beginning to grow. Because the greatest tragedy is not being rejected for who you are. The greatest tragedy is spending an entire lifetime being loved for someone you were never truly allowed to become. There is a dangerous myth that often appears in discussions about psychology. The idea that if you feel lonely, you must be awakening. That loneliness itself is proof of wisdom. Carl Jung never suggested anything so simple. He did not glorify isolation. Nor did he believe that becoming yourself meant turning away from other people. Instead, individuation points in the opposite direction. Its purpose is not to separate us from humanity, but to help us meet others without hiding behind a mask. The difficulty lies in what happens between those two moments. Imagine restoring an old house. Before something stronger can be built, parts of the old structure must first be taken apart. For a while, everything feels unfinished. Psychological growth often follows the same pattern. Old beliefs lose their certainty. Old identities no longer fit. Old ways of relating begin to feel dishonest. Yet the new self has not fully taken shape. This is where loneliness often appears, not because there is no one around you, but because the person you used to be no longer feels familiar. It is tempting to escape that uncertainty, to search for a new identity, a new community, a new belief system that promises immediate certainty. But perhaps certainty is not what this moment is asking for. Perhaps it is asking for patience, for the courage to remain present while something deeper is still unfolding. Jung believed that psychological growth requires us to encounter the parts of ourselves we would rather avoid. Our fears, our contradictions, our hidden desires, our shadow. No one else can do that work for us. Friends may support us. Teachers may guide us. Books may offer wisdom. But some steps can only be taken alone. Not because we have been abandoned, but because no one else can walk them on our behalf. This is the difference between loneliness and isolation. Isolation says, I don't need anyone. Individuation says, I no longer want relationships built on pretending. From the outside, those two paths can look almost identical. Both may involve more silence, fewer social obligations, more time alone. But they lead to very different places. One closes the heart. The other prepares it for a more honest kind of connection. Perhaps that is why this stage feels so confusing. What looks like loneliness from the outside may actually be the quiet construction of a self that is finally capable of genuine intimacy. There comes a moment when something begins to change, not because the world is different, but because you are. For a long time, becoming more honest with yourself may have felt like losing people. You stopped chasing approval. You became less interested in performing, more comfortable with silence than with conversations that required you to pretend. At first, it can feel as though you've lost your place in the world, but perhaps you were never losing it. Perhaps you were simply creating space for something more genuine. When we wear a mask long enough, people naturally learn to relate to the mask. They come to expect the version of us that is always agreeable, always available, always predictable. So when that mask begins to disappear, some relationships struggle to survive. Not because anyone intended harm, but because the relationship was built around a person who no longer exists. Painful as that realization may be, it also creates something new. For the first time, someone has the chance to know the person behind the performance. Jung believed that individuation does not separate us from humanity. It allows us to participate in life more fully, not as actors playing a role, but as individuals who have begun to understand their own inner world. Real connection asks for something performance never can. Not perfection, not certainty, not constant confidence, only honesty. And perhaps that is why genuine relationships often feel so rare. They begin where pretending ends. The more willing we become to accept our own imperfections, the less energy we spend trying to hide them. And when we stop hiding, we quietly give others permission to do the same. Perhaps this is why the deepest relationships are rarely built on having everything in common. They are built on something much simpler: the feeling that neither person has to earn the right to belong, that both can simply be seen. Maybe this is what so many people have been searching for all along. Not more attention, not more admiration, not more popularity, but one place where they no longer need to become someone else. Perhaps the goal was never to find people who would admire you. Perhaps it was to become someone who no longer depends on admiration, to feel worthy of connection. And perhaps that is the quiet gift hidden within individuation. Not a life without loneliness, but a life where loneliness is no longer created by abandoning yourself. Perhaps loneliness has been asking you the wrong question all along. We often ask, "Why don't I belong?" But perhaps the deeper question is, where have I stopped belonging to myself? For much of our lives, we learn how to become acceptable. We learn which emotions to hide, which dreams feel unrealistic, which parts of ourselves seem too risky to reveal. Little by little, we build a life that earns approval, while quietly wondering why it never feels completely our own. Individuation invites us to reverse that process. Not by rejecting the world, not by believing we are different or superior, but by having the courage to meet ourselves honestly. That journey is rarely comfortable, may change our relationships. It may ask us to let go of old identities, and at times, it may feel lonely. But loneliness is not the destination. Its purpose is not to leave us disconnected from others. Its purpose is to free us from living disconnected from ourselves. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps that privilege is not about becoming extraordinary. Perhaps it is simply about becoming real. Because in the end, the opposite of loneliness is not being surrounded by people. It is living a life where you no longer have to hide. Thank you for watching. If this reflection resonated with you, consider subscribing to Hidden Patterns, where we explore the hidden forces shaping the human mind through the ideas of Carl Jung and other great thinkers. Until next time, keep looking beneath the surface.